The Galactic Alliance flourished across thousands of star systems. Its military powers, the Aqua Dominion Union Cluster, Crimson Conglomerate, maintaining a delicate balance of power through technological superiority and sheer numbers. Humans, relegated to a mere frontier planet, were considered little more than necessary cannon fodder in the grand scheme of galactic politics. The newly established 47th Battalion represented Earth's latest contribution to the Alliance forces, a special mobile infantry unit designed for rapid deployment in hostile environments. Lieutenant Elena Hawk Reyes, formerly of the Medical Corps before transferring to Tactical Command, stood at the head of this modest force. In the year 3251, the 47th Battalion was stationed on the red Deimos moon of Mars for their final training exercises before official deployment. The ochre landscape of Deimos, dotted with crystalline ice formations and the occasional volcanic vent, provided the perfect terrain for battle simulations. "You understand what's at stake here, Lieutenant," Admiral Joe had told her upon her assignment to the 47th. "This battalion represents the first truly human-led tactical unit in the Alliance. Success or failure here determines whether our species gains a meaningful voice in galactic military decisions." Reyes had nodded her brown eyes, reflecting the weight of responsibility. "I'll make sure we prove our worth, Admiral." Now, as she stared across the training grounds where her 500 soldiers practiced maneuvers in their adaptive exo-armor, she wondered if that promise had been premature. "Lieutenant Reyes, the Tiger Pressure Cadets have arrived for the joint exercise," reported Ensign Malik, Echo Singh, her head of technical intelligence. The young officer's dark eyes gleamed with anticipation behind his tactical visor. "They're already setting up their command post on the northwestern ridge." Reyes nodded, brushing a strand of black hair from her face. The Tiger Pressure Cadets, an elite group of officer candidates from across the Alliance, had been sent to Deimos specifically to test the 47th's capabilities. Their advanced training and superior equipment were supposed to humble the human unit, to remind them of their place in the hierarchy. "Let them get comfortable," Reyes said with a hint of a smile. "Echo, gather the squad leaders. I have a strategy I want to discuss." Within an hour, the leaders of the 47th's 12 squads had assembled in the command bunker, their expressions ranging from curious to skeptical, as Reyes outlined her plan. "You want us to do what?" exclaimed Sergeant Aurora Firefly Zhang, the leader of the close combat unit. Her usually stoic face betrayed her disbelief. "It goes against every tactical principle we've been taught." "Exactly," Reyes replied, her finger tracing patterns on the holographic terrain map. "The frame inversion tactic works precisely because it contradicts conventional military doctrine. We'll turn their expectations against them." She looked around at the faces of her officers. "The Alliance generals believe human unpredictability is our greatest weakness. I intend to prove it's our greatest strength." As the Tiger Pressure Cadets deployed their forces across the volcanic plains, they followed textbook formation patterns, their troops spreading out in a modified pincer movement designed to overwhelm the 47th's position through superior numbers and firepower. They expected a conventional response, a defensive perimeter perhaps, or a strategic withdrawal to more favorable terrain. What they got instead shocked the observing Alliance generals. The 47th Battalion seemed to splinter into disorganized groups, their movements chaotic and seemingly purposeless. Some units fell back, others pushed forward into exposed positions, while still others moved laterally across the battlefield. To the Tiger Pressure commanders, it appeared that the human forces had lost all cohesion, a total command breakdown. The cadet commander, a 7-foot-tall Aquan named Vextral, laughed as he ordered his forces to exploit the apparent disarray. "Typical humans," he remarked to his adjutant. "They fall apart at the first sign of pressure." But as the Tiger Pressure units advanced to capitalize on the 47th's apparent confusion, they found themselves caught in a series of interlocking kill zones. What had seemed like disorder was in fact a carefully orchestrated trap, a frame inversion that reversed conventional battlefield geometry. Instead of responding to the enemy's initiative, Reyes had created a tactical framework that forced the enemy to unwittingly follow her script. Within 12 hours, the exercise was over. The Tiger Pressure Cadets had been decisively defeated, their command structure thrown into disarray by the unorthodox tactics they couldn't predict or counter effectively. As the simulation ended and the after-action reports were compiled, Reyes received an unexpected visitor at her command post. General Merrick of the Union Cluster. One of the senior military observers loomed in the doorway of her office. The tall, gray-skinned alien regarded her with an inscrutable expression in his 4 eyes. "An interesting demonstration, Lieutenant," he said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into smooth English. "Your frame inversion tactic was most unexpected." Reyes stood at attention. "Thank you, General. The 47th is dedicated to developing innovative approaches to combat." General Merrick's upper eyes narrowed slightly. "Indeed, innovations that perhaps should remain on Deimos for now." After he left, Reyes couldn't shake the unsettling feeling behind his words. Later that evening, as she reviewed the day's performance with her staff, a priority message came through from Alliance Command. The 47th Battalion was being deployed to the front line immediately to Bastion 9, a critical fortress world under attack by the Crimson Conglomerate. The message was signed by General Merrick himself. In the Galactic Council chambers on the Alliance capital world of Nexus Prime, General Merrick addressed the assembled military leadership with uncharacteristic urgency. "The human battalion must be contained," he stated, his 4 eyes gleaming with conviction. "Their tactical thinking represents a dangerous variable in our carefully balanced military equations." Admiral Thren of the Aqua Dominion leaned forward, her translucent fingers forming a steeple. "You seem unusually concerned about a single human unit, General. They performed well in an exercise, nothing more." "It is not their performance that concerns me," Merrick replied. "It is their methodology. This frame inversion tactic bypasses our predictive algorithms. If such thinking spreads among other units..." He left the implication hanging in the air. High Commander Zix of the Crimson Conglomerate, attending via hologram, gave a dismissive gesture. "Then, test them in actual combat. My forces are pressing at Bastion 9. Send these humans there. We shall see if their unpredictability survives contact with real enemy fire." The Council murmured their agreement, unaware that General Merrick had already issued the deployment orders. As the meeting adjourned, Merrick approached Admiral Joe, the human representative. "Your Lieutenant Reyes has impressed us," he said smoothly. "But remember, Admiral Battlefield innovation is valuable only when it serves the greater Alliance strategy." Joe's face remained impassive, but his eyes reflected understanding of the implied threat. "I'm sure the 47th will prove themselves worthy allies, General." Meanwhile, on the fringes of the Deimos base, a shadow detached itself from behind a supply depot. The operative codenamed Black Tiger had observed the 47th's training exercise with great interest. Now, as the battalion prepared for deployment, it was time to infiltrate their ranks and uncover the secrets behind this frame inversion tactic. The Black Tiger slipped into the base personnel flow, already wearing the face of a recently transferred communications specialist. By morning, they would be aboard the troop carrier bound for Bastion 9, embedded within the very unit they were tasked to study and potentially neutralize. The journey to Bastion 9 took 3 days through hyperspace time that Lieutenant Reyes used to prepare her battalion for what awaited them. The fortress world, with its network of defensive installations spanning a harsh, mountainous landscape, had been under siege for 2 months. The Crimson Conglomerate forces had established a stranglehold on the main supply routes, and the Alliance defenders were slowly being starved out. "Our mission is straightforward," Reyes explained to her officers, gesturing at the holographic map of their assigned sector. "Break through the enemy line here at the Ice Spine Ridge and re-establish the supply corridor to Fort Himera." Echo Singh frowned as he studied the topographical data. That ridge is nearly impassable, Lieutenant. The enemy holds all the defensible positions. Which is precisely why they won't expect us to come that way, Reyes replied with a tight smile. We'll use the Hunting Wing Rapid Response Team to traverse the ice mountains and hit them from behind while the main force provides diversionary pressure at the front. Sergeant Zhang shook her head. The Hunting Wing is only 40 soldiers. If they get isolated behind enemy lines, then we better make sure they don't, Reyes interrupted. I'll lead the Hunting Wing myself. Echo, you'll coordinate the main force's movements with Major Thompson. The officers exchanged glances, some doubtful, others intrigued by the audacity of the plan. Unknown to them, the newly arrived communications specialist Black Tiger in disguise was recording every detail of the strategy session, analyzing Reyes's unorthodox approach. As the officers dispersed to brief their squads, Reyes found herself briefly alone with the new specialist. I don't believe we've met, she said, extending her hand. Lieutenant Reyes. Specialist Caney, ma'am, Black Tiger replied, adopting a perfect Alliance accent. Transferred from the 33rd Support Division. It's an honor to serve with the 47th. Reyes studied the specialist's face, noting the flawless credentials and the appropriate level of deference. Something felt off, but with deployment imminent, there was no time to investigate a vague suspicion. Get settled in, Specialist. We drop in 6 hours. Bastion 9 greeted the 47th Battalion with a horizon of burning outposts and the constant thunder of orbital bombardment. The planet's surface was a maze of jagged ice formations, rising from volcanic rock, beautiful in its deadly contrast of steam and frost. As the troops deployed from their landing craft, Reyes immediately recognized that the situation was even worse than the briefings had suggested. Enemy forces have pushed beyond the outer defenses, reported Major Thompson, his weathered face grim as he pointed to fresh crater sites. Fort Himera is completely cut off, and their ammunition is critically low. Reyes quickly assessed the changed battlefield. We need to move faster than planned. Echo, prepare the Hunting Wing for immediate deployment. We need to reach the north face of the ice spine before nightfall. As the Rapid Response Team made final preparations, tension erupted within the battalion's command structure. This is suicide, Lieutenant, protested Captain Vega, one of the more conservative officers. We should establish a defensive position and wait for reinforcements. Reinforcements that won't come in time, countered Sergeant Zhang, her loyalty to Reyes evident. The Hunting Wing can make it through. And leave the main force exposed, Vega shot back. This isn't a training exercise anymore. Real lives are at stake. Reyes listened to both arguments, aware of the growing division among her officers. Some trusted her unorthodox approach, while others clung to textbook tactics that felt safer in the face of actual combat. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. I understand your concerns, Captain. They're valid. But conventional tactics won't break this siege. We need to embrace unpredictability. She turned to address the entire command team. The 47th wasn't formed to follow the same playbook as every other unit. We were formed to think differently, to find solutions where others see only problems. Her words didn't convince everyone, but they were enough to maintain cohesion for now. As she prepared to lead the Hunting Wing into the treacherous ice mountains, Reyes noticed Specialist Caney watching her intently. For a moment, their eyes met and Reyes felt a chill that had nothing to do with Bastion 9's frigid atmosphere. She made a mental note to have Echo look into Caney's background more thoroughly upon her return, if she returned at all. The ice spine ridge lived up to its name, a series of crystalline mountains with blade-like protrusions that could slice through standard armor like paper. The Hunting Wing moved in silence, their adaptive exosuits shifting color to match the blue-white landscape. Lieutenant Reyes led from the front, navigating through crevasses barely wide enough for a single soldier to pass. According to thermal imaging, the enemy command post should be just beyond that western peak, she whispered into her comm, pointing toward a jagged spire that rose like a frozen flame. "Sergeant Zhang, take your team and establish a surveillance position. The rest of us will continue toward the supply route." As Zhang's squad broke off, Reyes felt the weight of her decision. She had committed her forces to a dangerous gambit, splitting an already small team into even smaller units. If her intelligence was wrong, or if the enemy detected their approach, the thought was interrupted by a sudden burst of static in her comm, followed by Echo's urgent voice from the main force position. "Lieutenant, we have a situation. The enemy is moving forces toward your position. They seem to know exactly where you are." Reyes froze, scanning the pristine ridgeline. There was no way the Crimson forces could have spotted them. The hunting wing had chosen their route specifically to avoid enemy sensors. "Echo, are you certain? What kind of movement are we talking about?" "A full strike force, ma'am, heading directly for the western ridge where Sergeant Zhang is positioned." The implication was clear. They had been compromised. Someone had revealed their plans to the enemy. "Zhang, abort your approach," Reyes ordered. "Fall back to Rendezvous Point Delta." Only static answered her. "Zhang Firefly, do you copy?" More static. Then a burst of weapons fire echoed across the ice field, followed by the distinctive sound of avalanche charges detonating. The western ridge was erupting in chaos. Reyes made an instant decision. "All units converge on Zhang's position. Maximum speed weapons hot." As they raced toward the sound of battle, Reyes activated her tactical overlay. The display showed Zhang's team pinned down by a superior force, ambushed in a position that should have been unknown to the enemy. And among the friendly indicators on her display, one signal was missing Specialist Kaney. Back at the main battalion position, Echo Singh was coordinating the diversionary attack when his communication system flagged an anomaly. One of their secure channels was transmitting data externally, a channel assigned to the new specialist. "Major Thompson," Echo called urgently, "I need authorization to lock down all communications immediately. We have a security breach." The grizzled major glanced up from the tactical display. "Explain." "Someone's transmitting our tactical plans off base." "It has to be." Echo never finished his sentence. The command center rocked with the impact of a precision strike, knocking personnel to the ground and shorting out equipment. As emergency systems kicked in, Thompson staggered to his feet. "Status report." "We're under attack from all sides," reported a sensor officer. "Enemy forces are hitting our forward positions with heavy artillery." Echo pulled himself up, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "They know exactly where to hit us. Our tactical data's been compromised." Thompson's face hardened. "Find that communications specialist, now." But Specialist Kaney was already long gone from the command center, moving swiftly toward the extraction point where a Crimson strike team awaited. Black Tiger's mission was proceeding precisely as planned. Sow chaos in the human battalion, extract their tactical innovations, and eliminate their leadership. The only complication was Lieutenant Reyes's unexpected decision to lead the hunting wing personally. That wasn't in the intelligence brief. It meant Black Tiger would need to pursue into the ice spine to complete the elimination portion of the mission. Adjusting the plan, the operative slipped away from the chaos of the embattled command post and headed toward the ice mountains, following the tracking device planted on Zhang's equipment during pre-mission preparations. In the frozen labyrinth of the ice spine, Lieutenant Reyes and her remaining hunting wing members fought desperately to reach Zhang's position. The sound of combat grew louder as they approached, punctuated by the crash of ice formations shattering under weapons fire. "I count at least 20 hostiles," reported Corporal Diaz, the wing's scout, as they took cover behind a crystalline outcropping. "They've got Zhang's team surrounded in that ravine." Reyes studied the battlefield through her tactical scope. The enemy forces had deployed in a perfect containment formation around Zhang's position, a formation that suggested intimate knowledge of alliance tactics. "They knew exactly where to wait for them," she muttered. Then, on the edge of her vision, she caught movement, a lone figure in 47th Battalion armor, moving not toward Zhang's besieged position, but circling around toward higher ground. Even at this distance, Reyes recognized the distinctive gait of Specialist Caney. "Diaz, Carson with me," she ordered. "The rest of you prepare to provide covering fire for Zhang when I give the signal." As they moved to intercept Caney, Reyes pieced together the situation. The new specialist was the leak, probably a Crimson operative, who had infiltrated their ranks. And now, they were moving into position to coordinate the final phase of the ambush, or perhaps to ensure that no one from Zhang's team survived to report what had happened. Either way, stopping Caney became the immediate priority. Reyes led her small team through a narrow ice tunnel that would intersect with Caney's path. The close quarters meant they had to proceed single file, their armor scraping against the crystalline walls. As they emerged onto a small plateau, they found themselves face to face with Specialist Caney, who now held a non-standard issue weapon pointed directly at Reyes's head. "I wondered when you'd figure it out, Lieutenant," Caney said, voice devoid of the respectful tone from earlier. "You're more perceptive than my handlers suggested." Reyes kept her own weapon lowered, buying time as she assessed the situation. "Black Tiger, I presume your reputation precedes you." A flicker of surprise crossed Kane's face, before smoothing into professional neutrality. "Then, you know why I'm here. Your frame inversion tactics have the generals worried. Too unpredictable, too effective." "The generals," Reyes frowned. "This isn't a Crimson operation." Black Tiger's laugh was cold. "The Crimson conglomerate is just a convenient enemy, Lieutenant. This comes from much higher up the Alliance chain generals, who prefer warfare to remain calculable, controllable." The revelation struck Reyes like a physical blow. They had been betrayed not by their enemies, but by their own command structure. Before she could respond, the plateau erupted in weapons fire as Diaz and Carson launched a coordinated attack from their flanking positions. Black Tiger returned fire with uncanny precision, dropping Carson with a shot to the leg before diving behind a ice column. The battle had begun in earnest. On the main battlefield, Echo Singh had managed to stabilize the communications array and was desperately trying to re-establish contact with the hunting wing. "Lieutenant Reyes, do you copy? We have confirmation of an infiltrator codenamed Black Tiger." Extreme caution advised. Only static answered him, but that was to be expected given the mineral composition of the ice spine. He turned to Major Thompson, who was coordinating the battalion's defense against the intensifying Crimson assault. "Major, Lieutenant Reyes and the hunting wing are walking into a trap. We need to send reinforcements." Thompson shook his head grimly. "We can barely hold our position here, Ensign. If we divert forces—" His words were cut short as a new alert flashed across the tactical display. Echo's eyes widened. "Major enemy dropships incoming. They're landing behind us. We're about to be surrounded." Thompson stared at the display, momentarily overwhelmed by the deteriorating situation. Then his expression hardened with resolve. "Activate contingency plan Delta 3. Echo blinked in surprise. "Sir, that's Lieutenant Reyes' fail-safe protocol. She designed it specifically for exactly this scenario," Thompson finished. "She predicted we might face a multi-pronged attack with compromised communications. Now execute the protocol, Ensign." As Echo began inputting the commands, Thompson added quietly, "Lieutenant Reyes saw further than any of us. Let's hope her plan works." Delta 3 was one of the most unorthodox defense strategies Echo had ever encountered, a complete inversion of conventional response to encirclement. Instead of consolidating forces to defend a perimeter, it called for the deliberate fragmentation of the battalion into small, autonomous strike teams that would target the enemy's command and control nodes. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and exactly the opposite of what Alliance tactical doctrine prescribed. As the orders went out, Echo watched the tactical display transform. The seemingly disorganized retreat of their forces suddenly revealed itself as a complex web of interlocking maneuvers, each small team functioning as part of a larger, hidden pattern that was invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. "My God," whispered Thompson, as understanding dawned. "It's the frame inversion again, but applied to a defensive scenario." Echo nodded, a mixture of pride and concern in his expression. "Lieutenant Reyes called it organized chaos. The enemy thinks we're breaking apart under pressure, when we're actually surrounding them while appearing to be surrounded." Thompson finished, newfound respect in his voice. "No wonder the Alliance generals are worried. This kind of thinking changes everything." As the protocol unfolded across the battlefield, the Crimson forces found their carefully planned offensive transformed into a series of disjointed engagements against an enemy that seemed to materialize from nowhere and everywhere. Their command structure, accustomed to conventional responses, struggled to adapt to the fluid, unpredictable movements of the 47th Battalion. For the first time since the siege began, the initiative was shifting. In the frozen heights of the ice spine, Reyes ducked behind a crystalline formation as energy blasts shattered the ice around her. Black Tiger's marksmanship was exceptional, keeping her and Corporal Diaz pinned down, while Zhang's team remained trapped in the ravine below. "Any bright ideas, Lieutenant?" Diaz asked, wincing as an energy bolt sizzled past his helmet. Reyes assessed their options, which were severely limited. Black Tiger held the high ground and had the superior position. Conventional tactics dictated a strategic withdrawal, but that would abandon Zhang's team to certain death. Once again, Reyes would need to think beyond standard operating procedure. "Cover me," she ordered, removing a small device from her utility belt. "When I give the signal, target that ice formation above the operative's position." Diaz nodded, though uncertainty showed in his eyes. The device in Reyes' hand was a sonic resonator, a tool typically used for detecting structural weaknesses in ice formations. But with a few quick adjustments, she modified it to emit a frequency that would destabilize rather than merely analyze. "Ready," she whispered. At Diaz's nod, she activated the device and hurled it toward a point between their position and Black Tiger's. The resonator landed with a soft clink, immediately emitting a high-pitched whine that was barely audible to human ears. "Now!" Reyes shouted, rising to provide covering fire as Diaz targeted the ice formation. The combined effect was instantaneous. The resonator's frequency caused microscopic fractures in the ice, which expanded dramatically when struck by weapons fire. A massive section of the ridge collapsed, creating an avalanche that swept toward Black Tiger's position. The operative leapt away with inhuman speed, but was caught by the edge of the cascade tumbling down the slope toward Reyes and Diaz. Seizing the opportunity, Reyes rushed forward, weapon trained on the half-buried form of Black Tiger. The operative's helmet had been torn away, revealing features that shifted and blurred active camouflage technology that was failing under the damage sustained. "It's over," Reyes said, keeping her weapon steady. "Call off the attack on Sergeant Zhang's team." Black Tiger laughed, blood trickling from a cut on their shape-shifting face. "You think I have that authority? This operation is directed by General Merak himself. The Crimson forces answering to me are just a small part of his plan." Reyes's mind raced. If Merak was indeed orchestrating this betrayal, then the entire Bastion 9 mission was compromised at the highest level. "Why?" she demanded. "Why target a single human battalion?" "Because you think wrong," Lieutenant Black Tiger replied, features settling into an approximation of a humanoid face. "Your tactical innovations don't fit the algorithms. You introduce chaos into a system that requires predictability." Before Reyes could respond, her comm unit crackled to life. "Lieutenant, this is Echo. Do you copy? I'm here, Echo. Situation critical. We've captured a high-value enemy operative with intel suggesting Alliance involvement in the ambush." There was a moment of silence. Then Echo's voice returned tight with urgency. That aligns with what we're seeing here. Major Thompson has activated Delta 3. We're turning the tide, but the transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by the distinctive whine of jamming frequencies. Your communications are being suppressed, Black Tiger observed. Standard procedure when the Alliance wants to eliminate a problematic unit without witnesses. Reyes studied the operative, seeing not triumph, but a strange conflict in those shifting features. You don't agree with this mission, do you? Black Tiger's expression hardened. My opinion is irrelevant. I follow orders. Even when those orders betray the very principles of the Alliance you serve, Reyes pressed. Even when they involve sacrificing loyal soldiers to preserve a general's comfortable worldview. Something flickered in the operative's eyes, doubt perhaps, or recognition of a truth they had been avoiding. Before the conversation could continue, a massive explosion echoed across the ice field, followed by the unmistakable whine of approaching aircraft. Crimson gunships, Black Tiger identified. They're coming to finish what I started. Reyes made a split-second decision. Help me save my people and I'll guarantee your safety. Why would you trust me? The operative asked, clearly surprised. I don't, Reyes answered honestly. But right now, we both want to survive, and together we have a better chance than separately. After a moment's hesitation, Black Tiger nodded. The jamming frequency is 344.8 MHz. If you can reconfigure your comm system to bypass it, you can warn your people about the incoming airstrikes. As Reyes worked to modify her communication device, Black Tiger provided critical intelligence about the enemy forces converging on their position. The gunships are equipped with thermal imaging that can penetrate the ice structures. Your standard concealment tactics won't work. Reyes nodded fingers, flying over the compact transmitter. Then, we'll need to create false heat signatures. Diaz deployed the emergency thermal flares in a scattered pattern across the ridgeline. While Diaz moved to comply, Reyes finally broke through the jamming. Echo, do you copy Emergency Protocol Alpha 6? Crimson gunships inbound to the ice spine. Echo's voice came through, broken but audible. Lieutenant, we've been trying to reach you. The Delta 3 protocol is working, the enemy ground forces are in disarray, but we're tracking multiple gunships heading your way. I'm aware, Reyes replied grimly. Status on Sergeant Zhang's team. Still pinned down but holding. The enemy forces surrounding them seem to be waiting for something. The airstrikes, Black Tiger interjected. They're waiting for the gunships to soften the target before moving in for the kill. Reyes quickly formulated a new plan. Echo, we need to coordinate a response. Have our anti-aircraft batteries target these coordinates. She transmitted the approach vector Black Tiger had provided. And activate the Shadow Team for night operations. Full stealth protocol. The Shadow Team. Echo sounded confused. But it's midday. Just do it, Ensign, Reyes cut him off. And patch me through to Zhang. When the sergeant's voice came through, strained but determined, Reyes outlined her strategy. We're going to create an opportunity for you to break out, but you'll need to be ready to move the instant the engagement begins. Zhang's acknowledgement was terse but confident. As the conversation ended, Black Tiger gave Reyes an appraising look. The Shadow Team operates at night. What are you planning? Exactly what no one expects, Reyes replied with a thin smile. We're going to create night in the middle of the day, over the next 20 minutes, as the gunships approached. Reyes' plan unfolded. The Shadow Team, a specialized unit trained for nocturnal operations, deployed from the main battalion position, carrying unusual equipment, atmospheric disruptors, originally designed for weather modification. At Reyes' signal, they activated these devices simultaneously, creating a localized electromagnetic storm that churned the ice particles in the air into a dense, swirling cloud. Day turned to artificial night across the battlefield as visibility plummeted to near zero. In these conditions, the Crimson gunships' advanced targeting systems became nearly useless, their pilots forced to rely on instruments that were being scrambled by the electromagnetic interference. Meanwhile, the Shadow team, trained specifically for such low-visibility environments, moved with confident precision through the artificial storm. They located Zhang's position and created a corridor of covering fire that allowed the trapped soldiers to break free and regroup with Reyes's forces. The enemy ground troops, expecting to follow the gunship's lead, found themselves disoriented and vulnerable to counterattack. As the combined Hunting Wing and Shadow team fought their way back toward the main battalion position, Reyes kept Black Tiger close, both to prevent escape and to benefit from the operative's tactical insights. "Your night creation strategy wasn't in any of my briefing materials," Black Tiger commented as they navigated through the swirling storm. "Where did you learn such a tactic?" "I invented it," Reyes replied simply. "When standard approaches fail, you create new ones." The operative fell silent, seemingly reconsidering everything they had been told about human tactics. By the time they reached the main force, the tide of battle had turned dramatically. Major Thompson's execution of the Delta III protocol had thrown the Crimson forces into disarray, while the failed airstrike had left a critical gap in their battle plan. The 47th Battalion, far from being eliminated, was now actively pushing the enemy back on multiple fronts. Lieutenant Thompson greeted her as they entered the command center, his expression a mixture of relief and respect. "Your contingency plans saved us. The enemy is in full retreat toward their primary base in the Titan Valley." Reyes nodded, then gestured to Black Tiger. "Major, meet our unexpected ally, a former Crimson operative with critical intelligence about who's really behind this attack." As Thompson processed this information, Echo approached with a data tablet. "Lieutenant, we've intercepted communications from the enemy command. General Merak has personally taken control of their forces and is consolidating at the Titan Valley base." Reyes studied the tactical display, noting the concentration of enemy units. "He's preparing for a final stand," she observed. "And he's bringing in his best forces." She turned to Black Tiger. "What can you tell us about Merak's personal combat tactics?" The operative hesitated, then made a decision. "Everything. I'll tell you everything I know." Over the next few hours, as the 47th Battalion regrouped and prepared for what would likely be the decisive engagement of the campaign, Black Tiger provided invaluable intelligence about Merak's tendencies, preferences, and typical strategies. The picture that emerged was of a brilliant, but ultimately predictable commander, one who relied heavily on overwhelming force, applied according to time-tested principles. "He's never lost a major engagement," Black Tiger concluded, "because he never commits unless victory is mathematically certain." Reyes smiled faintly. "Then, we'll have to change the equation." As night fell over Bastion 9, she gathered her officers to outline the most audacious plan, yet one that would bring the 47th Battalion face to face with General Merak's elite forces in the volcanic cauldron known as Titan Valley. The Titan Valley stretched before them like an artist's nightmare, a vast depression where natural forces had torn the planet's crust open to reveal its molten heart. Active lava flows created rivers of liquid fire between islands of black rock, while geothermal vents periodically released superheated steam into the air. This hellscape, combined with the planet's natural ice formations that surrounded the valley's rim, created the fire maze, an ever-changing labyrinth of extreme temperature variations that could kill an unprotected soldier in minutes. It was here that General Merak had established his final defensive position, confident that no attacking force would risk traversing such deadly terrain. Thermal imaging shows approximately 5,000 troops. Echo reported as the command team studied the valley from their observation post. Heavy fortifications at these 3 points, and what appears to be Merak's command center, embedded within that ridge. Reyes nodded, eyes tracing the patterns of enemy deployment. They were textbook-perfect coverage of all viable approach vectors, interlocking fields of fire defensive positions that optimized the natural terrain advantages. Against the 47th Battalion's 500 soldiers, it should have been an impregnable position. "They're expecting us to behave like a conventional force," Reyes observed. "To see the terrain as an obstacle rather than an asset," she turned to her officers. "We're going to give the general what he fears most: human unpredictability on a scale he can't possibly anticipate." Over the next hours, she outlined a plan so unorthodox that several officers openly questioned its viability. Instead of avoiding the deadly natural elements of the Titan Valley, the 47th would weaponize them. Using the engineering corps' terraforming equipment, normally reserved for constructing defensive positions, they would deliberately trigger a series of controlled geological events that would transform the battlefield itself. "This isn't a conventional assault," Reyes explained as she addressed the doubters. "This is a fire maze strategy. We're not fighting Merak's army directly. We're making the valley fight for us." The plan required precise timing and coordination between multiple teams each, with specialized roles that diverged dramatically from their standard combat functions. Engineers became geological disruptors, medics deployed atmospheric-altering compounds, and the battalion's limited drone resources were repurposed for thermal pattern generation rather than reconnaissance or attack. Black Tiger, now committed to assisting the 47th, provided critical insights into Merak's psychological profile. "He prides himself on anticipating every possible scenario," the operative explained. "But his algorithms are based on conventional warfare paradigms. Create a scenario that exists outside those paradigms, and he'll be forced to improvise something he's never had to do." As dawn approached, the 47th Battalion moved into position around the valley perimeter, each unit carrying equipment modified specifically for their unconventional roles. Reyes, choosing to lead from the front, once again established her mobile command post on a ridge overlooking the northern section of the valley. "All units report readiness," Echo informed her, as the first light of the alien sun crept over the horizon. Reyes took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 500 lives under her command. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. "Let's show General Merak what human tactics really look like." The Battle of Titan Valley began not with an exchange of weapons fire, but with a series of precisely calculated geological disruptions. Engineering teams deployed sonic resonators at key points around the valley rim, creating vibrations that traveled through the unstable crust. The effect at first seemed minimal small tremors that barely registered on seismic sensors. But these vibrations were designed to compound, building upon each other, until they reached critical resonance points beneath the valley floor. Within 30 minutes, the first major reaction occurred. A massive lava flow suddenly shifted direction, cutting off one of Merak's forward positions from the main force. The enemy troops scrambled to reposition, confused by the apparent natural disaster that had so conveniently aligned with the 47th's tactical needs. Meanwhile, the medical corps released specially formulated compounds into the air above the valley, chemicals that reacted with the volcanic gases to create dense, localized fog banks that drifted in patterns controlled by the battalion's atmospheric specialists. These fog formations obscured enemy sensors while creating safe passage corridors for the 47th's advance teams. From General Merak's command center, these events initially appeared to be fortunate natural occurrences that the humans were opportunistically exploiting. It was only when the pattern became too consistent to be coincidental that he realized the truth. The 47th Battalion was somehow engineering the environment itself as a weapon. "Impossible," he muttered, as he watched his carefully designed defense grid unravel, section by section. "They cannot be controlling geological forces with such precision." But the evidence was undeniable. The 47th was creating what Reyes had termed the fire maze, a continuously shifting battlefield where conventional positioning became meaningless and predictive algorithms failed entirely. The humans moved through this chaos with practiced coordination, each squad adapting to the changing conditions, as if they had trained for this specific scenario. In truth, they were simply executing the principle of frame inversion on a grand scale, creating a tactical framework that forced the enemy to react to their initiative rather than the reverse. As the battle progressed, Merrick committed more forces to stabilize the situation, only to find that each new deployment was countered not by direct human opposition, but by another coincidental shift in the battlefield environment. Lava flows diverted to isolate units, steam vents triggered to create impassable barriers, ice formations destabilized to block retreat routes. The 47th Battalion, meanwhile, executed precisely choreographed maneuvers that appeared chaotic to outside observation, but followed Reyes's carefully designed pattern. They struck at seemingly random points, withdrew before counterattacks could materialize, and reappeared where least expected. It was warfare as a mathematical puzzle, where only one side understood the full equation. From her command position, Reyes coordinated the complex operation while monitoring the enemy's responses. There, committing their reserves to the southern quadrant, Echo reported tracking enemy movements through their limited sensor network. Merrick is trying to establish a stable foothold from which to launch a counteroffensive. Reyes nodded. Right on schedule. Initiate Phase 3. The third phase of her plan was the most audacious direct engagement with Merrick's elite guard, while the bulk of his forces remained distracted by the environmental chaos. Leading a small strike team, including Sergeant Zhang and the reformed Black Tiger Reyes, infiltrated through a series of steam vents that her engineers had temporarily suppressed. Their target, the command center embedded in the ridge, where General Merrick was coordinating the increasingly desperate defense. Security will be formidable, Black Tiger warned as they approached the concealed entrance. Merrick's personal guard are the best in the Union cluster. We're not going through the front door, Reyes replied, gesturing to a narrow fissure in the rock face, a maintenance access point that Echo's analysis had identified. Sometimes the most direct approach is the one they never expect you to take. As they slipped into the access tunnel, the battle outside reached a new level of intensity. The 47th's main force began a coordinated push against the southern defensive line, drawing Merrick's attention away from his immediate surroundings. It was a dangerous gambit. Those soldiers were facing significantly superior numbers and firepower. But they only needed to maintain pressure long enough for Reyes' team to reach their objective. Inside the command complex, Reyes and her small team moved swiftly through maintenance corridors, guided by schematics that Black Tiger had provided. They encountered minimal resistance. Most security forces had been deployed to reinforce the perimeter. When they finally reached the central command chamber, they found General Merrick surrounded by his senior officers, his four eyes fixed on tactical displays, showing the deteriorating situation outside. Your strategies failed, General Reyes announced, as her team secured the room weapons trained on the stunned alien officers. The 47th Battalion has broken your defense. Merrick turned slowly, his expression shifting from shock to a strange, reluctant respect. Lieutenant Reyes, I should have eliminated you on Deimos when I had the chance. You had multiple chances, Reyes replied, keeping her weapon steady. But you underestimated human adaptability at every turn. A mistake I shall not repeat, the general acknowledged. Though it seems the point is now moot. He gestured to the tactical displays showing his forces in disarray across the Titan Valley. You have achieved what our algorithms predicted was impossible victory against overwhelming numerical superiority through methods we cannot quantify. The admission was delivered with clinical detachment, but Reyes detected something else beneath the general's composed exterior, genuine curiosity. How did you conceive of tactics that exist entirely outside our established parameters? Before Reyes could respond, the command center shook violently as an explosion rocked the outer defenses. A communication officer rushed in, only to halt abruptly at the sight of the human strike team. General, the southern perimeter has collapsed. The human forces are... I can see that Commander Merak interrupted his eyes, never leaving Reyes. It seems this engagement is concluded. He straightened to his full height, towering over the human lieutenant. I formally surrender my forces to the 47th Battalion with all honors of war. The announcement sent shockwaves through the command room. A general of Merak's stature had never surrendered a superior force to a numerically inferior opponent in the recorded history of the Alliance. As Merak's officers processed the unprecedented development, the general himself stepped closer to Reyes, lowering his voice. This surrender serves a greater purpose, Lieutenant. There are those in the Alliance command who would rather destroy your battalion than allow your tactical innovations to spread. I would speak with you privately about matters of mutual concern. Reyes studied the alien's four-eyed gaze, searching for deception and finding only strategic calculation. Secure the command center, she ordered her team, and signal the main force to cease environmental disruption operations. As her soldiers moved to comply, she turned back to Merak. You have 5 minutes to convince me this isn't another trap, General. In a secluded corner of the command center, General Merak revealed the truth that would forever change Lieutenant Reyes' understanding of the Galactic Alliance. The Council fears human unpredictability, he explained, his voice barely above a whisper. Your species thinks in patterns that our predictive algorithms cannot map, creating strategies that introduce unacceptable variables into our carefully balanced power structures. Reyes frowned. So this entire campaign, the ambush, the betrayal, was about containing human tactical innovation. For some on the Council, yes, Merak acknowledged. They believe warfare should remain a calculable equation with predictable outcomes. Your frame inversion approach threatens that paradigm. And you, General, what do you believe? Merak's four eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture that Black Tiger had explained indicated deep contemplation among his species. I believe that adaptation is necessary for survival. The Alliance has grown comfortable in its predictability, vulnerable to any force that thinks truly differently. He straightened. That is why I surrendered, Lieutenant. Not because I could not continue fighting, but because I wish to study your methods, rather than extinguish them. Reyes absorbed this information, its implications cascading through her tactical assessment. You want to learn from us. I want the Alliance to learn from you, Merak corrected. But there are powerful factions who would rather eliminate the 47th Battalion than risk disrupting the established order. Your victory here will make you even more of a target. As if to emphasize his point, a priority communication alert sounded from the command console. Echo, who had joined them after securing the perimeter, checked the incoming transmission. Lieutenant, it's from Alliance High Command. They're ordering an immediate orbital bombardment of the Titan Valley sector. Reyes's eyes widened. They're going to eliminate their own forces. Along with yours, Merak confirmed grimly. As I predicted, the official record will show that you were lost in a tragic friendly fire incident necessitated by the tactical situation. We need to evacuate immediately, Reyes decided, already moving toward the exit. Echo, signal all units to fall back to the extraction points. There's no time, Merak countered, moving to the command console. The bombardment vessels are already in position, but perhaps there is an alternative. With swift, precise movements, he accessed command protocols beyond even his apparent authority level. During my time on the Council, I acquired certain override codes for emergency situations. This, I believe, qualifies. As Reyes and her officers watched in amazement, Merak executed a series of commands that caused the tactical displays to reconfigure. I have redirected the bombardment to target uninhabited sectors of the valley, he explained, and transmitted confirmation of successful elimination of all ground forces. As far as Alliance Command is concerned, both the 47th Battalion and my troops have been regrettably sacrificed for strategic necessity. They'll discover the truth eventually, Echo pointed out. when we return to Alliance space. Which is why you won't be returning to Alliance space, Marak stated flatly. At least not immediately. Lieutenant Reyes, I am offering you and your battalion sanctuary within the outer territories of the Union cluster officially as prisoners of war, but in reality as honored guests and I hope teachers. Reyes stared at the alien general, processing the extraordinary proposal. You're defecting. I prefer to think of it as taking a strategic position outside the current command structure, Marak replied, with what might have been the alien equivalent of a smile. The Alliance needs your tactical innovations, Lieutenant, but it is not yet ready to accept them. Give me time to change that from within, while you and your battalion remain safely beyond their reach. The proposal was unprecedented, a high-ranking general of one of the Alliance's major powers, offering protection to a human unit against the Alliance's own leadership. It was also, Reyes realized, possibly the only way to ensure the survival of her people given the ruthlessness that command had just demonstrated. My loyalty is to my soldiers and to humanity's future in this galaxy, she said finally. If that future requires an unconventional alliance, then so be it. As she extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement, Marak inclined his head in solemn acceptance. The smartest generals in the galaxy fear a single human battalion, he observed. Perhaps it is time they learned from it instead. The pact they formed in that moment would eventually reshape the military doctrine of the entire Galactic Alliance, though neither of them could have predicted the full scope of the changes to come. For now, it was enough that the 47th Battalion would survive to fight another day, and to continue developing the unpredictable tactics that had proven so devastatingly effective against overwhelming odds. The withdrawal from Bastion 9 was executed with the same unorthodox precision that had characterized the 47th's entire campaign. While Alliance Command believed them vaporized in the orbital bombardment, Reyes led her battalion through a series of hidden evacuation routes that Marak's forces had prepared. Transport vessels disguised as civilian freighters carried them beyond Alliance space to a remote outpost in the Union Cluster's frontier region. Welcome to Haven Station, Marak announced, as they docked at the massive space facility, orbiting a nondescript gas giant. Officially, a military research installation, unofficially the perfect location to continue your work without interference. Reyes stood beside him on the observation deck, watching as her soldiers disembarked into their new temporary home. And, when the Alliance discovers we're still alive, they already suspect, Marak replied. But without confirmation they cannot act without revealing their attempted elimination of your unit, a political complication no one on the Council desires. He turned to face her directly. You have time, Lieutenant. Use it well. Over the following months, Haven Station transformed from a sanctuary into an unprecedented military think tank. The 47th Battalion, freed from conventional constraints, developed and refined tactical innovations that built upon the frame inversion principle. With Marak's resources at their disposal, they created training simulations, strategic models, and battlefield applications that systematically challenged every aspect of Alliance military doctrine. Echo Singh led the technical development team, creating new algorithms that incorporated human unpredictability into combat systems. Sergeant Zhang established a close combat academy that revolutionized urban warfare techniques. Even Black Tiger, now fully committed to their cause, contributed insights into counterintelligence operations that would prove invaluable in the conflicts to come. Reyes oversaw it all, coordinating the various initiatives while developing her own grand strategy for eventually reintegrating the 47th into the Alliance, under conditions that would protect both her people and their innovations. 6 months after their supposed destruction, Lieutenant Reyes, now promoted to Major by Marak's authority, received a secure communication from an unexpected source, Admiral Zhou, the human representative on the Alliance Council. Your death has become quite the political liability, Major Joe's encrypted message began. Certain factions within the Council are beginning to question the necessity of the Bastion 9 bombardment, particularly as rumors circulate about remarkable tactical developments emerging from the Union cluster's frontier. Reading between the lines, Reyes understood that Joe had discovered their survival and was extending a cautious diplomatic overture. After consulting with Marak, she crafted a response that would set in motion the next phase of their long-term strategy. "Perhaps it is time for resurrection," she suggested in her reply to Joe. Under the right conditions. The negotiations that followed were delicate and complex, involving multiple layers of the Alliance power structure. Gradually, a framework emerged for the 47th Battalion's official return, not as a disgraced unit to be contained, but as a formalized, special strategic battalion, with a mandate to develop new tactical approaches for Alliance forces. General Marak, leveraging his considerable influence, secured approval for this unprecedented arrangement against significant opposition. The day before the 47th's scheduled departure from Haven Station, Marak visited Reyes in her office for a final private conversation. "The Alliance Council remains divided on your return," he informed her. "While the majority now see the value in your tactical innovations, there are those who still consider human unpredictability a threat rather than an asset." Reyes nodded, having expected as much. "We'll be walking into a complex political situation." "With powerful enemies," Marak agreed. "But also with powerful allies who recognize that the future of warfare in this galaxy has been irrevocably changed by your contributions." He paused, then extended a sealed data crystal. "A personal message, Major. For your eyes only when you have safely returned to Alliance space." Reyes accepted the crystal with a questioning look, but Marak offered no further explanation. The following day, the 47th Battalion departed Haven Station aboard an official Union Cluster diplomatic vessel. Their reception at Alliance headquarters on Nexus Prime was a carefully choreographed affair, part military ceremony, part political statement. Admiral Joe personally welcomed Major Reyes, presenting her with formal recognition of her new rank and the battalion's special status. The 47th Battalion has been officially designated the Special Strategic Battalion, he announced to the assembled dignitaries and media representatives. Their unique approach to tactical problem-solving represents an important evolution in Alliance military doctrine. Behind the public pronouncements, Reyes knew fierce debates continued within the council chambers. Some generals embraced the tactical innovations her team had developed, while others remained deeply suspicious of approaches that defied conventional algorithms. It was only later, alone in her new quarters, that Reyes finally activated the data crystal Marak had given her. The general's image appeared in a holographic projection, his four eyes focused with unusual intensity. "Major Reyes, if you are viewing this message, you have successfully navigated the political minefield of your return. What follows is not for official records, but for your personal understanding of why your battalion caused such concern among my peers." Marak's image shifted slightly, adopting a more formal posture. "Only humans can truly understand war," he stated the translation, rendering his clicking speech with perfect clarity. "The rest of us, the Aqua Dominion, the Union Cluster, all the so-called advanced species, we have reduced conflict to mathematics. We fight wars by equation with predictable costs and calculated outcomes. But humans—" Here he paused, all four eyes, blinking simultaneously, in what Black Tiger had taught Reyes was an expression of profound realization. "Humans understand that war is chaos, that victory often comes not from superior force, but from embracing unpredictability. Your frame inversion tactic was merely the beginning, a glimpse of what makes human military thinking so uniquely powerful and so deeply unsettling to those of us who prefer our galaxy's orderly." The message continued, detailing Marak's analysis of the 47th's impact on Alliance strategic thinking and his predictions for the challenges they would face in the coming years. It concluded with a statement that Reyes would carry with her through all the campaigns to come. The smartest generals in the galaxy fear a single human battalion because they recognize a fundamental truth: only those who can master chaos truly understand war. And that, Major Reyes, is why I surrendered to you at Titan Valley. Not because I could not continue fighting, but because I knew I had encountered a mind that understood warfare at a level my species has forgotten. Teach us, challenge us, and perhaps together we can forge a better understanding of both conflict and peace. As the hologram faded, Reyes sat in silence, contemplating the journey that had brought her and the 47th Battalion to this point. From a training exercise on Deimos to reshaping the military doctrine of the entire Galactic Alliance, all because they had dared to think differently to invert the frame when convention failed. Outside her window, the lights of Nexus Prime glittered like stars. Somewhere among those lights, the officers and soldiers of other Alliance units were already beginning to study and adopt the 47th's tactical innovations. And somewhere else, Reyes knew, those who feared such changes were plotting to contain or eliminate what they could not control. The next campaign was already taking shape, not on a distant battlefield, but in the corridors of power, where the future of humanity's role in the Alliance would be determined. Major Elena Hawk Reyes, commander of the Special Strategic Battalion, was ready for whatever challenges that future might bring. After all, unpredictability was her greatest weapon.